Talking about the Republicans, they might be doing a bit better than I think a lot of commentary channels usually try to say on this platform and many others. And there might be a surprise coming for the midterms because many people do see them trying to make America great again.
We will make America great again.
Let's start with an example with this from Benny Johnson saying, quote, major SCOTUS victory on mail-in ballot rules lifts ban on 23 states.
And what I will say here is this is a major story. We have multiple wrinkles in this thing. I didn't completely understand it at first because I know a lot of these rulings come down and then the Democrats challenge them or they put in other cases. So I went a little bit further to see if Trump is actually going to be able to implement a lot of these policies, because if it is, it would be a game changer for the midterms as well as the 2028 election.
The Supreme Court has just overruled a block placed by an Obama judge preventing Trump's executive order to implement safeguards for mail-in ballots. The ruling now means states must turn over a list of every voter getting a ballot, put unique serialized barcodes on both the outgoing and return envelopes. If a state refuses, USPS will not deliver these ballots. This is a major election integrity win.
And this is massive. I believe mail-in balloting was the #1 way of election fraud. Now, there was others as well. There's a lot of states that do not have voter ID. This is why passing the SAVE Act is going to be so important, especially in these sanctuary states like California. But in sanctuary states like California and a lot of other states, they request these mail-in ballots in mass and give them out to non-citizens to vote, or even people that don't exist or are dead or any number of other things. This is a massive win, I believe, of everything we could do to stop election fraud in the United States before the midterms. Mail-in balloting, if I could only pick one, that would be the one I would go after.
And which is why we see a lot from the other side, and that we're used to having the ability to potentially, possibly rig the elections with their hands all up in the air and being very annoyed at election integrity, which that by itself should tell you something. But Gunther Eagleman says Newsom is already threatening to sue again, calling Trump's mail-in voting safeguards Orwellian. What's Orwellian is not wanting to have those safeguards in place in a democracy, but Pritzker is calling it an unprecedented attempt to interfere in our elections. They're not upset that the court let the order move forward. They're upset the basic eligibility checks might actually get enforced.
Okay, so we've seen the kind of general ruling coming down here, and I was wondering what the Democrats' countermove would be, and this is going to be it. I'm going to let her explain it, but then there's a countermove to that countermove that Trump has an ace up his sleeve, basically. Let's get into it.
Part of his plan to restrict mail-in voting, at least for now. So this was a 6-3 vote in favor of this, a major win for President Trump. It lifts a lower court block that prevented the administration from implementing key parts of Trump's March executive order, which called for the federal government to create lists of voters eligible to receive federal ballots. It requires states to provide information so the Postal Service can verify that voters on those lists are eligible. The administration argues that the goal is to protect election integrity and prevent ballots from going to people who are not eligible. But Democratic officials in 23 states and D.C. sued to block the order. They argue that the president is overstepping his authority and the Constitution gives states the primary role in administering elections. They say this fight is...
Pause it just for a quick moment. You can see these Democrats, they don't want voter ID. They don't want the SAVE Act. They don't want to clean up elections. They want more mail-in balloting. They want more election voting machines or electronic voting machines. Every way that could possibly be rigged, this is what the Democrats want, and they protect those methods within their own states. And that's why they're going to try to push back. And they're going to get into it in a minute with a lot of statements coming out from these governors.
Far from over. So California Governor Gavin Newsom reacted saying, quote, California will be suing again to block these Orwellian rules from being implemented. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker responded, quote, the Supreme Court's decision allowing Donald Trump and the U.S. Postal Service to move forward with this unprecedented attempt to interfere in our elections is deeply troubling. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul stated, New York challenged this unlawful executive order from the very beginning, and we will continue the fight. The Supreme Court did not rule that Trump's executive order is legal. Justices instead ruled that the states who sued did not have the legal right to challenge it. And with just 70 days to go until the midterms, there's a lot of questions over whether these new rules could be implemented before then. Ainsley, Brian, Lawrence, back to you.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Also in politics,
I think they're going to directly break the rules and try to deal with the consequences later. So I hope Trump sends federal agents on site to monitor a lot of this stuff so they can press charges and prosecute after. Because bigger than the midterms is the 2028 elections. I think the midterms are kind of a trial run here to kind of plug the holes in the ship and see where a lot of the corruption is coming from in these blue states.
And I think the Democrats are also running out of good excuses to try to continue with the mechanisms that they themselves set in place as they lose USAID, for example, and a lot of funding and help that came with that they could use and channel and funnel through different varieties of channels, but also with the fact that it makes less and less sense every time they fight, the more things that are being done to try to protect elections themselves, and they sound more insane as they do it. So I don't know if the public is even on their side. We've seen a lot of people that also take it as, well, it's not fair that they're saying I'm a person of color, but I can't go get an ID. That's not true.
Well, the general public, 76%, whether Republican or Democrat, want voter ID. They want more transparency in these elections. And when you see massive amounts of ballots coming out trunks of cars and them shoving them in these remote ballot boxes, it's absolutely ridiculous.
But they continue to panic because, again, it is an existential crisis for them. The fact that they might not be able to win, who knows if ever again, if elections are secured.
Well, and this is the counter move to their counter move. So the hearing came down. The governors are saying, we're going to press new cases forward to stop that before the midterms. There's something Trump can do here. Why don't you read the first little segment and then we'll let them explain it.
Eric Doherty says, quote, leftists are panicking after President Trump dropped his response to suggestions he declare a national emergency to secure our elections until the Save America Act is law. And let's watch.
Okay, because it's so hard to get the Senate to do anything. Now they're on recess. They don't get anything done if they never get the Save America Act done. You have the right to declare a national security emergency for elections. And the Supreme Court ruled.
And pause it quickly right there. And the Save America Act supposedly has enough votes once they come back. The problem is it's too late if they try to implement it now, but he can call an emergency. It's 100% completely legal, and he has a justification here, especially under Biden with the amount of illegal immigrants that came through the border. There's no way to know who's requesting these ballots. So we want voter ID, we want proof of citizenship, and we want no mail-in balloting or very limited mail-in balloting. He has the justification because of the mass immigration policies of the previous administration.
1983 under Reagan, that INS versus Chadha, that if you declare a national security emergency as the president of the United States, they can't challenge it. It can only be overturned by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So if you do this in the next month, we will get photo ID, proof of citizenship, and a limit to mail-in ballots. And
Let me just say the stranger things have happened. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So let me finish with a couple things. Dr. Fauci, can't you challenge the auto pen? You should challenge in court.
And we can leave it there. And kind of one other thing I think I'll say here is he can get everything he wants in the SAVE Act by declaring that national emergency for elections. That being said, I think he's going to pass the SAVE Act first and then declare it because the SAVE Act will not have enough time to be implemented based upon it passing at such a later date. And I think that's why they waited so long to pass this thing.
And looking at all of this from being from another country, I am originally from Mexico, it's insane to us, and I think to most other countries in the world, that there is places in the United States where you can go vote with no ID or with no real address, or you can just make up whoever you are, and that still it is considered a democracy. And those that say they fight the hardest for democracy, being the Democrats, people like Newsom and Pritzker and etc., the ones that are complaining about this are the ones that are most fervently against it because they know they will probably lose, especially because, as Zed says, quote, CNN saying that white non-college college-educated voters prefer Republicans with the economy and inflation, with a net trust in economy going up 16 for Republicans and inflation going up 16 as well for Republicans.
And white non-college voters are one of the biggest voting demographics. That's why they're looking at it here on CNN.
The fact that Trump's economic net approval rating is negative, that all of a sudden Democrats are trusted more? They are not trusted more. Look at this. Party that, well, isn't that interesting? Sometimes you get the slide cut off a little bit here, but there we go. We'll put that P right there. Party white non-college trust more on the economy. Look at this. It's Republicans plus 16 points. Republicans are still trusted more on the economy. And this gets back to what I'm saying here. What is this? What is this? Hold on. It's not a, give me this. It's not a question mark. It's an exclamation point. It's an exclamation point from Kate, my producer. Everyone sucks. Everyone sucks. Everybody sucks. That's what's going on here. Everybody sucks.
And you can pause it here. And I don't think everybody sucks. I think Trump has a long-term plan and they trust him more on the economy than they do the Democrats. But why don't we go down? There is a secondary clip here as well.
Yeah, the Democratic Party favorability with white non-college educated has collapsed. We'll see.
And they want to say how unpopular Trump is right now. I don't think he is unpopular. They have polling that they're paying for that may say he is unpopular. Even if he is unpopular, he's not nearly as unpopular as the Democrats are here. So just because people may not vote for Trump, they're not going to go vote for the Democratic Party. I can tell you that much.
And the panic is setting in.
How about the net favorability rating in the Democratic Party? Look at this. Look at this long-term trend. In 2012, it was minus 2 points. Look at where it was in a CBS News poll that came out within the last month. The Democratic Party's net favorability with non-college white voters, minus 36 points. So the short-term trend, not necessarily good for Republicans and Donald Trump, but the long-term trend's really, really bad for the Democratic Party. Really, really bad. We're talking about, what is this? This is a 34-point drop over the last 14 years. And even if Donald Trump is struggling, remember, it's which side is losing more. When you match up Democrats, how about the net favorability rating?
Yeah, and that's the thing. The Democrats are massively losing support, and a lot of that has to do with the DSA. A lot of Democrats are walking away and choosing not to vote. A lot of them are also crossing the aisle to the Republican Party. Republicans look like 90s Democrats. Hell, even early 2000 Democrats they look like with a lot of their policies.
And we are also seeing that a lot of the fear-mongering, like Bernie Sanders and others like to do about, our democracy is at risk with Donald Trump, etc., has not come to fruition, and things are actually potentially also getting better and seeing a stronger administration rather than the nightmare that they always say that's coming and the Orwellian nightmare that they say they want to fight against. There's no nightmare to fight against, and yet in the news and polls and etc., we do see them trying to do a sort of, they want to magic up something that doesn't exist so people think it does, and then they act accordingly.
Well, I don't know
working.
I don't know what they're going to do if the Democrats lose seats in the midterms, because that's going to be a huge indication for the 2028 election, especially with such a strong ticket like a JD Vance and a Marco Rubio.
True, and hopefully so. But also don't forget to subscribe while we're here, and also like the video. It really does help us out.